Why did you decide to move from science to publishing, and how did this happen?
Well, I've always been interested in science in general, and I've always been a curious person, and I've always enjoyed helping people. And when I was a postdoc in Heidelberg, I got the opportunity to, like a lot of postdocs, to help a lot of the people in the group find the best formulations for their science. And that was something that I always enjoyed doing that. And that gave me sort of an insight into an aspect of science that I'd not really thought about before I came to Germany. It was something, as I say, I enjoyed doing. And so later on there was an opportunity to come and work at Angewandte as a freelancer to do some of these things. And I got the chance to come into the office to try out a few things, do some translations, do some table of contents text, work on some of these things, and I really enjoyed that side of things. And later on, fortunately, there became a position available at Angewandte, and I was offered the position, and I've been here ever since, basically 25 years and counting, if you like.
Already as a high school student, I was fascinated by books. I think I remember that I read eagerly the Christian textbooks, and I even convinced my parents to give me as a Christmas present a Linus Pauling general chemistry textbook. And early on I had access to handbooks like the Ramp, which fascinated me as well. And when I was a student in Göttingen, I think I was the one perhaps close to nearby who was most often in the library, and my boss very often had to look for me. So reading journals and books throughout my student days was very important to me. And another aspect of publishing is to deal with people. I early on was taken along by my professor Armin de Meyer to conferences in Germany like the Chemie Dozententagung, and I remember that I was eager to learn who is who does what are the controversies in science. And when I then returned after my postdoctoral time at IBM with Bob Miller in California, I saw an advertisement. Angewandte Chemie was looking for an assistant editor, and there was no way that I could resist a minute to apply for that job.
Can you please tell us a bit how your career has developed?
Well, back in 1992, a long time ago now, I started first of all as a freelancer in Angewandte. I got the chance to translate table of contents text initially, and like any freelancer that you come into the publishing business, you then get additional tasks to do with different parts of the company. So I then did some copy editing for Ullmann's Encyclopedia and various book projects. Then after that I got offered a permanent position and started as an associate editor back in October 1992 with Angewandte. Worked as an associate editor for around 5 years, and then was promoted to the deputy editor of Angewandte Chemie in 1997. And just after I'd been made deputy editor of Angewandte Chemie, the deputy editor of Chemistry European Journal resigned to go on and do something else, and so I was then offered the chance to take on that position in addition. So if you like, I was a double deputy for a number of years. And that went on until around 2002, when I became the editor-in-chief of Chemistry European Journal, in addition to being the deputy editor of Angewandte Chemie.
What has been the last experiment you did in the lab?
Actually, I perhaps can better say when was the last time I visited a lab. I must confess that I didn't do experiments in the lab for a very long time. But the last time I visited a lab is only a month or so ago, when I visited the Technical University of Munich. And I always enjoyed visiting the labs of scientists. I immediately ask, can we go to your lab when I visit a university? Because the hoods, the smell, the instruments, they fascinate me, and I love to go through labs. So that's my lab experience, not experiment so to say, but go to the lab is a fantastic thing for a chemist.
What did you like most about publishing?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a chemist, and I enjoy really the science that we get, and of course Angewandte is one of those places. Fortunately, you get the best science and you get the best chemistry around, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy in the publishing aspects that I'm working in. Of course, in the science community, Angewandte is the place to be working as a scientist. So I enjoy that side of the business. I also enjoy the ability, if you like, to improve the papers that we get coming in to make a few tweaks on them to make them more accessible to as many people as possible. Because very often scientists, they know exactly what they want to say, but they've not always said what they want to say, and sometimes we can help them then to better communicate that to a much wider audience, and that's something that I enjoy doing.
I enjoyed most in my life as an editor that I could learn new chemistry every day, and I had to deal with people of various sorts throughout my life as an editor. And furthermore, what was very important for me is that I could read widely. I love to read, and I could read from biology to physics, and chemistry was always center stage. As an editor, you also have to help people along the way in the publishing process, and it gave me great pleasure when I could see that things improved throughout the process. Another aspect that pleased me was the fact that you can develop your product and you see the product, how it evolves. You see the individual articles from the first draft that is submitted through the various stages of the publishing process and then the final publication. And it usually gets much better on the way. And furthermore, as an editor, you see the journal evolve. You see the journal grow in scope. You can evolve the journal in its reputation and also in size. And believe it or not, also the business side of publishing was quite rewarding.
Are there any aspects you would like to be different?
Yeah, unfortunately, as in many sides of society, there are a small minority who, if you like, do things that they shouldn't do in the science community in terms of fabricating results and wasting editors and peer reviewers' time, and that would be something that would be great if people would stop doing that. I understand that there's the pressures out there in the community to publish the best results in the best journals, but unfortunately they're only doing themselves harm in that sort of thing, and they're also doing harm to the whole community by, if you like, doing things that shouldn't be done in science. Other things that I would like to change, I would like people to, in terms of like the funding agencies, not to put so much emphasis on the impact factors and what those numbers really mean, because of course an impact factor for a journal is not something that's actually showing exactly what the research itself is like for the individual papers, and people should judge the individual science on the individual science that's there and not on an impact factor. Another one of my pet hates related to the impact factor is the fact that they measure it to 3 decimal places. If you look at the way that these numbers are calculated, anybody in science would throw those results out of a scientific paper if they were put out like that. So that's something, again, the fact that you use the numbers to such a level is rather strange. And one other thing, if I had the chance, I'd like to give researchers more freedom to carry out more fundamental research and not always have to drive the research towards applications at such an early stage.
The pressure to publish, and particularly the pressure to publish in high impact factor journals, has gotten out of hand these days. And the pressure comes from university administrators, from funding agencies, but it also comes from within the scientists themselves. Scientists are, by their very nature, very competitive. They want to be best, they want to be best in class, they want to be the first in a certain field to achieve something. And it gives them great pleasure if they have an acceptance from a high impact factor journal. Great pleasure for a mature scientist, but also a very important event for early career researchers, kind of an entry ticket for their next step in their career. The whole system is addicted to the impact factor mania today. Citations and other measures are taken as a surrogate for quality and are taken much too seriously. It is as if a carpenter would take the sawdust more seriously than the furniture product that he produced. The scientific community and the publishers should ignore all simple counting measures. I think that's my plea for the change of the system.
What are current trends in publishing?
In terms of some of the new trends in publishing or some of the new technological advances, I think the plagiarism software has made a massive difference in our day-to-day routine work, giving us the chance then to see which authors, if you like, have done things they shouldn't have done, and it allows us then to save peer reviewers time, which of course has become more and more important as there's more and more papers in the community that need to be peer-reviewed properly. Other developments along those lines which are interesting are, for example, the ORCID ID, which has allowed researchers to distinguish themselves and to basically form better communities. So I think they're positive advances that have gone on. There's one or two interesting experiments going on in the community at the moment with regard to peer review. The crowdsourcing peer review project and the double-blind projects that are going on in different publishers. And it will be interesting to see what the results of those are in due course and to whether or not those things are actually taken on to be used in the future. Open access, of course, is something that we can't get by these days. In principle, it's a positive thing to look at, or it's positive in terms of the community. However, it's a question of who's going to fund this going forward, and it's also important to stop some of these predatory publishers, if you like, publishing content and just taking the money out of the community without actually securing the data for the future and for future generations.
One trend is the transformation of the individual article and also the referee reports from scientific products to traded goods that are priced. They have a price tag in the future. Authors pay already today so-called article publication fees, and I think I see already the first indications that referee reports will also be goods and publishers will have to pay for. Another aspect or current trend is more automation and more technology. More technology has been with us for the last 25 years and has been very beneficial. I think never in the history of science were there more scientists who had faster access to more articles than is the case today. The next wave of technology will make more use of text mining. I think computers will pick the referees and other tools, perhaps also translation software, will enter scientific publishing. So there is technology ahead of us. Whether everything is good, we'll see, but it has helped in the past, and it certainly will be very helpful in the future. The last thing I want to mention here are preprints. More recently, they popped up in various disciplines after they had been around for a very long time in physics already. But in my opinion, chemists have to lose more than they gain by just publishing unrefereed papers on the web quickly. We already have the early view or ASAP version. We have the accepted article version. We have the version of record. I think we don't need another version called preprints, which is accessible to the world prior to any peer review.
What has been your biggest influence or motivation?
I've been fortunate throughout my career to work with a lot of people who've inspired me over time. During my PhD, I got to work with Nick Norman and John Errington in Newcastle, and then in my postdoc days in Heidelberg, I got to work with Gottfried Huttner. And they all gave me the freedom, if you like, to try out new things, and they gave me the support in the background to be creative and give me the opportunity to try things that were, if you like, a little bit off the norm, that may have worked or may not have worked. But that gave you the chance then, as I say, to try out new things, and that was great. Since I've come into the offices of Angewandte, of course, there's a lot that I've learned from Peter Gölitz, somebody that's been doing the job for 35 years, and I've now been doing it for 25 years, so you can imagine that in those 25 years we've experienced a lot of things together, and I've learned a lot of things from him in that time. I've also been inspired, if you like, by a lot of the professors that have submitted work to us and that we've worked with. That's been a pleasure to work with some of those. You also notice that they've got a real responsibility in the way that they treat their students and how they work with those students, because those students then take on those character traits in the next generation. And there's been some really good ones that I've worked with over time. Too many to number and to name. I'm also privileged in that within the group we work with a lot of creative people in the editorial team. So some of our brainstorming sessions then come up with some great ideas, and everybody bounces the ideas off everybody else, and that's something, again, I've learnt a lot from them, and hopefully they learn some things from me, and together we go forward and we make some positive developments in science and for the journals and chemistry in general.
My biggest motivation for me was hard work. I love hard work, and as Lord Todd, who got the Nobel Prize some 60 years ago, once said, what you have to do if you want to win the Nobel Prize, hard work is the minimum requirement, creativity, intelligence and motivation are also needed. While I know that as an editor I would never get the Nobel Prize, nevertheless I enjoyed doing what I did and to make Angewandte a very good journal. The competition is a good motivation, and I have always enjoyed competitive publishing, and particularly the friendly competition with the American Chemical Society journals, in particular JACS. Peter Steng and his predecessors as editors of that journal were always good partners in this in publishing, and we exchanged regularly. There are so many excellent scientists in the world who I admire from whom I learned that I think it would not be fair to name or to single out individuals. I am tempted, but I should not.
What is unique about the position of the editor-in-chief of Angewandte Chemie?
It is, on the one hand, the breadth of the topics and the variety of the sections the journal has. I think no other journal has such a variety of things like essays and reviews and author profiles, etc., and then the avalanche of communications every week. That's one thing, but the other one is that I could work so closely with a team of roughly 25 editors and assistants, and I'm very proud of what we have achieved together. They all work here in the offices, or almost all of them, close to me, and I can interact with them on a routine basis whenever the need arises. That is unique for an editor of Angewandte. I think no other academic editor has the opportunity to do that.
What do you do in your spare time?
I look forward to learn what that word means.
Well, when I get a chance to relax, I like listening to music. I'm quite active in the sport side, so I enjoy playing football and watching my two sons play actively football at the weekend. And I enjoy geocaching, which is something that allows me to get out and about in the community, in the countryside, to see new places, to, if you like, solve puzzles, either word puzzles or mathematical puzzles, to find the coordinates for what you're looking for in the countryside.
What are your plans for the future?
To leave the trenches and to become a free man is now very exciting for me. I will certainly help the community in the future, and for example through consulting, I have contacts on that front. I will give lectures, I will participate in all sorts of events. Having just received the highest honor of the German Chemical Society, their honorary membership, I feel committed to serve the community in the future, and I think there will be many opportunities, and I look forward to staying in touch with the community. I think it was certainly a great opportunity for me personally to serve the community in this position for 35 years as editor-in-chief, 37 years with the journal, and I enjoyed almost every moment of it, despite lots of pains and lots of hard work over the years. But it was an enjoyable journey, and I'm most thankful.